He lingered in his own establishment, a gnawing hunger within him, while the staff cast sidelong glances, silently critiquing his look. Who was the sole individual that showed him any kindness? A server blissfully unaware that she was attending to the CEO. Gregory Lancaster devoted the past 30 years to crafting his culinary empire. What began as a modest family-owned bistro has evolved into the Lancaster Grill, a collection of upscale dining venues spread throughout the nation. His establishment served an exclusive clientele, including business leaders, stars, and affluent families, all of whom anticipated flawless service and an opulent experience. Yet, in the midst of his achievements, an unsettling feeling lingered within him. Complaints had begun to pour in. Initially, they appeared infrequently, a message here, a remark on social media there. Yet, as time passed, the pattern grew too evident to overlook. Patrons expressed that his establishments exhibited a lack of concern for lower-income guests, occasionally bordering on contempt. Rumors circulated about servers overlooking patrons who appeared less affluent, dismissing those who didn't give off the impression of generous tippers. Gregory established his reputation on the commitment to excellence, extending beyond just culinary offerings to encompass the warmth of service. If his restaurants were struggling with that, it wasn't merely a matter of business. It was intimate. One evening, perched in his penthouse apartment in Phoenix, Arizona, he perused the most recent complaint. As I stepped into the Lancaster Grill last night, I was simply seeking a pleasant meal to unwind after a long day. I may not have been dressed to impress, but I certainly had some cash to spare. The staff regarded me as if I were an outsider. I wasn't even acknowledged by anyone. I sat there for 20 minutes, and when someone finally approached, it was evident that I was not their main concern. I departed with a sense of deep embarrassment. Improve your efforts. Gregory let out a deep breath, placing his phone gently on the marble countertop. He had toiled relentlessly to allow anything like this to tarnish his good name. He required a direct look at the issue, and he had a precise plan in mind to achieve that. The following morning, he rummaged through his closet, shoving aside tailored suits and stylish jackets, until he discovered what he sought. An old, faded flannel shirt and a pair of well-worn jeans. He donned them, allowing the material to envelop him in a manner that felt strange. Next, he added the final details. A rough beard that had sprouted over the last few days, a worn baseball cap tilted down over his brow, and a set of battered sneakers that had been tucked away for years. He gazed at his reflection in the mirror. He no longer resembled Gregory Lancaster, the multimillionaire CEO. He appeared as a weary, unfortunate soul who simply craved a comforting meal. However, merely dressing the part fell short. He had to experience it. Before making his way to the Lancaster Grill, he forgot his wallet at home, taking with him only a handful of crumpled dollar bills. To genuinely assess his staff's kindness, he had to set aside his wealth as a cushion. He boarded the bus rather than opting for his customary black SUV, acutely aware of each exasperated sigh and scrutinizing stare from passersby, who presumed he was merely another destitute soul with no place to go. As he arrived at the restaurant, the sun was starting to dip below the horizon, enveloping the sleek glass facade in a soft, golden light. This was the moment. He tilted his cap, inhaled deeply, and swung open the doors to his very own restaurant. Yet this time as an unknown. However, what unfolded next was entirely unexpected for him. The moment Gregory entered, the change in the ambience was palpable. The Lancaster Grill epitomized the essence of a high-end dining experience. Refined illumination, sophisticated black and gold accents, and the subtle scent of grilled steak and truffle butter drifting in the atmosphere. Servers in immaculate attire glided effortlessly, expertly balancing exquisite plates and impeccably filled wine glasses. Yet, an unspoken tension lingered in the atmosphere, an implicit order of precedence. Gregory lingered at the threshold, observing the dynamic between the staff and the patrons. A stylish couple received friendly smiles and was promptly escorted to a table. A gentleman in a finely crafted suit hardly needed to utter a sound before a waiter gracefully drew out his chair and set a menu before him. In stark contrast, Gregory encountered an entirely different scenario. A young blonde hostess, probably in her mid-20s, cast a glance at him from her podium. Her gaze darted from his worn shirt to his battered shoes. She remained expressionless, offering no greeting, merely parting her lips to utter, "Can I help you?" With an unmistakable air of disinterest, Gregory nodded, merely seeking something to eat. The hostess raised an impeccably shaped eyebrow. "Is there a reservation under your name?" He nearly chuckled. He was aware that the reservation book was completely booked for the evening, yet he also understood that those with status and deep pockets always managed to secure a table without issue. He chose to go along with it. He conceded. Yet, she let out a sigh, wishing there was something available. She tapped at the screen before her, her fingernail gleaming in a rich, glossy red. "It will take a minimum of an hour." Gregory surveyed his surroundings. He noticed a minimum of 3 vacant tables. He understood from past encounters that tables were typically left available for those walk-ins who appeared to have the means. Just as he was about to speak, a resonant voice interrupted. "Understood, Jessica." Gregory pivoted. A tall, broad-shouldered man in a crisp button-up stood behind the podium, arms crossed, exuding an air of authority. The name tag displayed, Manager Stephen Callow. Jessica, the gracious hostess, gracefully stepped aside, feeling a sense of relief as she allowed her boss to take charge of the situation. Stephen assessed Gregory with a quick glance, then forced a courteous yet insincere smile. "As my hostess has indicated, we are currently at full capacity this evening. It might be worth exploring some of the other dining options nearby." Gregory stood firm. "I don't mind waiting." I can see the tension in Stephen's jaw. A subtle glimmer danced across his features. Frustration, perhaps even revulsion. Indeed, there exists a distinct ambience in this place. A significant number of our visitors arrive seeking a specific type of experience. If you're in the mood for something laid back, there's a diner just a few blocks away. There it stood. Determination. He had anticipated something along these lines, but experiencing it directly was an entirely different matter. Gregory inhaled deeply, maintaining a calm demeanor. He decided against engaging in a debate. He had no intention of asserting his authority. He was present to watch, allowing them to carve out their own demise. Just as Stephen was about to press the issue of his departure, an unexpected voice interrupted the exchange. "I'm capable of handling him." Gregory turned, and for the first time that evening, he beheld a true smile. She appeared youthful, perhaps in her mid-20s, possessing warm brown skin and dark, expressive eyes that conveyed a depth of emotion. Her uniform was impeccably pressed, yet there was a weariness in her demeanor, reminiscent of someone toiling tirelessly for rewards that fell short of their efforts. Stephen let out a heavy sigh, his irritation evident. "Jasmine, we don't have any open." The table by the window she cut in. "It is devoid of content." Stephen's demeanor soured, yet Jasmine remained unperturbed. With a swift motion, she picked up a menu, gestured for Gregory to come along, and guided him through the scrutinizing looks and murmurs of the other employees. As Gregory settled into his seat, he remained unaware of the extent to which this act of kindness would unfold, nor the price it would exact from her. Gregory settled into the chair by the window, the evening's weight enveloping him. The dining room buzzed with soft chatter and the sporadic sound of silverware, yet at his table, an eerie stillness prevailed. Jasmine placed a menu before him, her demeanor inviting yet composed. "Would you like something to drink?" Gregory cast a quick look at the prices. He was already familiar with them, naturally, but experiencing them from the perspective of someone who might be tallying every dollar felt different. Even the most affordable glass of wine exceeded the hourly earnings of some individuals. "Only water," he said, pausing briefly before continuing. "If that's acceptable?" Jasmine remained unperturbed. She simply nodded naturally. She vanished for a brief moment, reappearing with a tall glass and placing it down delicately. "Feel free to explore the menu at your own pace. Feel free to reach out if you have any inquiries." Gregory found himself at a loss for words. He entered his own restaurant, anticipating the sight of its floors, bracing himself for the chilling indifference that others had cautioned him about. Yet there stood this waitress, treating him as if he were significant, as if he had a place, even when every aspect of him suggested the opposite. He surveyed his surroundings. Other servers glided by his table, their eyes averted, as if he were invisible. They shared laughter with the elegantly attired patrons, poured wine with a graceful flourish, and leaned in with keen interest to take orders. Yet, when their gazes shifted in his direction, it felt distinct, dismissive, and lacking in interest. Only Jasmine caught sight of him. Upon her return moments later, she leaned in a bit, her voice taking on a gentler tone. "I prefer to tread carefully." However, she paused for a moment, then a smile broke across her face. "If you're uncertain about your choice, I can present a small option for you." Gregory felt a constriction in his throat. He might have effortlessly spent a few $100s on dinner, without a moment's hesitation. In this moment, he allowed himself to envision what it might be like if things were different. He gazed at her, as if weighing the choice between a meal and the fare for his next bus ride. "There's no need for you to do that." "I understand," she replied with a straightforward tone. "However, I have the desire to do so." She refused to give him the chance to dispute. She strolled into the kitchen, and moments later, she came back with a steaming bowl of soup accompanied by a slice of warm bread. The serving was modest, yet it was arranged with the same meticulous attention as the other creations emerging from the kitchen. Gregory gazed at it for a moment before reaching for the spoon. The soup exuded a depth of flavor, impeccably seasoned. The bread had a tender, rich texture, reminiscent of butter. It transcended the mere act of eating, however. The essence of the situation lay in the choice made by this woman, a waitress probably earning just above minimum wage, to embrace kindness rather than pass judgment. He cast a fleeting look at her name tag, Jasmine. He committed it to memory. Just as he was about to speak, a piercing voice sliced through the silence. "Jasmine." A single word. Stephen, the manager, leaned against the kitchen doors, arms folded, his irritation unmistakable. Jasmine adjusted her posture. "I'll be right back," she murmured softly, before making her way toward him. Gregory observed her as she moved aside with Stephen. He was unable to grasp the full dialogue, yet he picked up on snippets. Time is slipping away. He is a valued client. Hardly. Every individual is entitled to respect in their interactions. Stephen's expression contorted with irritation. He cast a sharp look at Gregory's table, then whispered something inaudible before striding away. Jasmine took a deep breath before turning to head back. She remained silent about the recent events, simply smiled and inquired if he required anything further. Gregory observed her intently for an extended moment. She was completely unaware of his identity, unaware that she had just stood up for the very individual capable of transforming her existence. However, she was on the verge of discovering the truth. Gregory sensed the change in the atmosphere as Jasmine turned and left. The kindness she displayed was not only unexpected, but also unwelcome, at the very least to those who managed this establishment. Stephen lingered by the hostess podium, engaging in quiet conversation with Jessica. From time to time, a fleeting gaze would drift toward Gregory's table. He wasn't overly suspicious. He had attended numerous influential business meetings to discern when someone was the topic of conversation. Moments later, Jasmine reappeared, carrying a delicate plate adorned with butter and an abundance of fresh bread. "In the event that you're still feeling peckish," she remarked with a gentle smile. Just as Gregory was about to express his gratitude, an unfamiliar waiter emerged at the table. A young man sporting slicked-back hair and an artificial smile. "Excuse me, sir," he said, struggling to hide his hesitation. "I wanted to inform you that if you intend to order an entree, we ask for payment in advance for specific guests." The language was meticulously crafted, yet the intent was unmistakable. Gregory locked eyes with the young man. "Specific attendees?" The server paused, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. "It's merely a guideline we adhere to on occasion." Absolutely not. Jasmine interrupted before she had the chance to hold back. The waiter blinked, taken aback by her audacity to confront him. Beg your pardon? Jasmine's jaw clenched. We allow our guests to enjoy their meal before settling the bill. Gregory noticed Stephen observing from the other side of the restaurant, arms folded, eager to witness the unfolding drama. The young waiter fidgeted awkwardly. I was merely adhering to the path laid out before me. Allow me to make a prediction, Gregory remarked, placing his spoon aside. It's not necessary to request payment in advance from him. He gestured toward a businessman clad in a finely tailored navy suit, leisurely sipping from a glass of exquisite wine. Stillness. The waiter remained silent. He glanced at Stephen for direction, but the manager merely shook his head slightly, a wordless signal that he should simply turn and leave. The waiter let out a reluctant chuckle, muttering "forget it," before vanishing from sight. Jasmine let out a breath, then faced Gregory. I sincerely apologize for that. That was unexpected. Gregory remained silent for a moment. He merely gazed at her. He noticed the weariness in her gaze, the manner in which she held herself, as if she were accustomed to expressing regret for matters beyond her control. What is the duration of your employment here? He inquired. Jasmine paused, letting out a soft sigh. Nearly 24 months. Do you enjoy it? She offered him a faint smile. I appreciate the customers. That revealed all the information he required. Just as he was about to speak, Stephen suddenly emerged. He wore a smile, yet there was an edge to his expression. Jasmine, he uttered with a tone tinged by insincere calmness. Could you come to my office for a moment? Jasmine cast a quick look at Gregory before giving a rigid nod. She naturally trailed behind Stephen, slipping into a narrow corridor close to the kitchen. Gregory remained motionless, his fingers tightly clutching the table's edge. The soft murmur of voices enveloped him, accompanied by the gentle clatter of dishes and the distant hiss of food cooking in the kitchen. Yet, his mind was consumed by the vivid image that had just unfolded before him. The manner in which Jasmine was being treated for merely acting with integrity. The struggle she endured merely to present him with a meal, just as she would for any other patron. He was aware of the unfolding events in that office. Stephen was reprimanding her, perhaps even putting her position at risk. Gregory tightened his jaw. This was not merely a singular occurrence. This was an issue of culture, a challenge that had developed within his organization while he had been preoccupied with financial gains and growth. However, the aspect of power, in a heartbeat, it has the potential to transform everything. And tomorrow, everyone in this restaurant would discover precisely who he truly was. The following morning, the Lancaster Grill welcomed patrons as it typically did. The team moved with purpose, arranging tables, shining silverware, and getting ready for yet another evening of exquisite dining. Today was destined to unfold in an unexpected manner, leaving everyone in the dark about the changes ahead. At precisely 6 o'clock, Gregory Lancaster made his entrance through the front doors. Not in the worn garments from the previous evening, but in a finely tailored charcoal suit, gleaming shoes, and an undeniable presence of command. Jessica, the hostess, stood up straight without hesitation. Her expression transformed from a hint of annoyance to a rehearsed friendliness in a heartbeat. Good evening, esteemed sir. Greetings from the Lancaster Grill. Gregory remained silent, offering no recognition of her presence. His gaze roamed the dining room, seeking out a single individual. Jasmine. As she was placing a plate on a nearby table, her gaze lifted momentarily. The realization struck her immediately. Her eyes grew large with surprise. Her complexion lost all its hue. She was aware. She had a clear understanding of his identity now. The whispers began almost at once. Other servers exchanged hushed words, casting furtive looks at the impeccably attired gentleman positioned by the entrance. Even Stephen, who had just exited his office, came to a standstill upon catching sight of him. Gregory moved through the room with a careful pace, each step intentional and calculated. Every individual who had overlooked him, brushed him aside, or made him feel out of place, now stood in rapt attention. He halted before Stephen, who had become rigid as a plank. "Mr. Lancaster," Stephen finally uttered, managing a strained smile. "What an unexpected turn of events. Had I been aware of your arrival, we would have made the necessary arrangements. Do I appear to be someone who requires special consideration?" Gregory interjected, his tone steady yet assertive. Stephen paused, uncertainty flickering in his mind. "Absolutely not, sir." Gregory turned, his gaze sweeping over the staff. "How many of you recognized me last night?" Quiet. Silence enveloped the scene, as if time itself had paused. Not a single soul stirred. Jessica took a deep breath. The young waiter, who had requested prepayment, suddenly discovered something quite intriguing on the floor. Gregory allowed the silence to linger before he resumed speaking. "Last night, I arrived seeking answers," he remarked, his voice resonating throughout the restaurant. "I had been receiving feedback regarding the treatment of specific customers in my establishments. I took it upon myself to discover the truth." The atmosphere in the room was thick with unease. He directed his attention towards Stephen, and what I witnessed, his tone grew somber. I found it utterly repulsive. Stephen's complexion drained of color. "My dear sir, I have a detailed explanation to offer." Gregory raised a hand. "Everything is quite clear. I observed my own team overlook my presence. I felt like a burden, and when a single individual, just one, extended kindness to me, she faced reprimand for it." He shifted his gaze to Jasmine, his tone gentle. "You defended me even when it wasn't required of you, even when it might have jeopardized your position." Jasmine parted her lips, only to seal them again. She appeared frazzled, caught in a moment of uncertainty, teetering on the edge of either dismissal or commendation. Gregory allowed the gravity of the situation to linger in the air before he uttered another word. He remarked that you were the sole individual who fulfilled the very purpose for which this restaurant was established. Respect others with honor. With unwavering gaze, he retrieved a card from his pocket and extended it towards her. She paused momentarily before reaching for it. Her gaze skimmed the words on the page. "Elevated to the position of general manager." In effect right away. The stillness that ensued was overwhelming. Jasmine's breath caught in her throat. I find myself perplexed." "You shouldn't be waiting tables here," Gregory stated plainly. "This place is meant for you to lead." From the other side of the room, Stephen emitted a choked sound. "My good sir, surely you jest." "I can, and I am," Gregory said, turning to him. "What about you? Your services are no longer required." Jessica inhaled sharply. The young waiter's jaw dropped in astonishment. Stephen stammered, "Mr. Lancaster, if you would be so kind. I've been employed here for—" But Gregory interrupted him. "Your place is not in a leadership role. True leadership is rooted in integrity. I do not support individuals who mistreat their own staff and alienate paying clients." He shifted his gaze to the remaining members of the team. "I encourage everyone to reflect deeply on how you interact with others. For after tonight, nothing will remain the same." The gravity of his words hung in the air, enveloping the space. Jasmine, clutching the promotion card tightly, gazed up at him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "But what is the reason?" she inquired gently. "What motivates you to do this for me?" Gregory offered her a faint smile. "In moments when others turned away, you recognized my presence. Now it's my moment to witness you." And just like that, the Lancaster Grill was forever changed. The establishment lingered in a stillness that felt almost palpable. Not a soul was willing to stir. This caught everyone off guard, especially Jasmine. Gregory observed her as she gazed at the promotion card clutched in her hands, her fingers quivering ever so slightly. The gravity of it, the significance of it, was beginning to take hold. "I find myself at a loss for words." At last she murmured softly. He beamed. "Affirmative." Jasmine blinked, surveying her surroundings as though she anticipated someone to suddenly appear and declare it all a prank. However, she confessed that she had never run a restaurant before. "I understand how things operate, but, You see, there's a way people ought to be treated, Gregory interjected. And that is what holds the greatest significance. Jasmine swallowed hard. She had dedicated her entire existence to being unnoticed, skipped for advancements, regarded as if she were expendable. And now, the proprietor of the very establishment she dedicated herself to was conveying to her that she simply wasn't sufficient. She was the ideal candidate for the position. Her voice remained hesitant. Do you really think so? Gregory's demeanor became gentler. Jasmine, I have been at the helm of this company for many years. I have accumulated millions. Yet, last night, you brought back the spark that ignited my journey from the very beginning. It was never solely about generating profit. It was about crafting something significant. If I can't rely on someone like you to manage this place, then I've already fallen short. Her eyes shimmered, yet she blinked rapidly, aligning her posture with determination. Then yes, she finally replied, her voice unwavering. Absolutely, I will take care of it. The restaurant staff seemed uncertain about how to respond. Some appeared taken aback, while others seemed anxious, particularly those who had overlooked Gregory the previous night. A shift was imminent, and they could sense it in the air. Gregory glanced at Stephen, who remained paralyzed in shock. You may gather your belongings now, he stated calmly. Stephen tightened his jaw. This is absurd, he whispered to himself. All this because of a mere waitress. Gregory's demeanor shifted to one of shadow and intensity. She goes by Jasmine, and that sets her apart from you. Stephen held his tongue, suppressing whatever words were on the verge of escaping. Instead, he pivoted sharply and marched toward the back office. Jessica, the hostess, stepped back with a hint of hesitation, reflecting on her decisions. Gregory inhaled deeply and faced Jasmine once more. Your journey begins tomorrow. However, at this moment, he waved his hand in the direction of the door. Enjoy the remainder of the evening to yourself. Go revel in the moment. Jasmine paused, uncertainty flickering in her mind. Do you really think so? I don't mind wrapping up my shift, Gregory chuckled. Jasmine, you're in charge now. You no longer require my approval. The understanding washed over her once more. A gradual smile blossomed on her lips, a blend of astonishment, incredulity, and perhaps, for the first time in ages, genuine pride. Gregory observed her departure, experiencing an emotion that had eluded him for some time, anticipation. He then faced the rest of the staff, his tone steady yet authoritative. This establishment is undergoing a transformation. From this moment forward, we will extend the same level of respect to every customer, regardless of whether they enter in formal attire or casual wear. The communication was unmistakable. Some would remain. Some might choose to depart. However, the Lancaster Grill would never function in the same manner again. As Gregory stepped into the night, a singular truth settled in his mind. It was more than merely a restaurant that had transformed. It was also him. There are individuals who display kindness solely when they believe there is something to gain from it. True kindness, the kind that transforms lives, occurs in the quiet moments when no one is observing. Jasmine was completely unaware of Gregory's identity. She had no intention of seeking the approval of a CEO. She was simply following her convictions. And that changed everything. When the opportunity to show kindness arises, seize it without hesitation. One can never be certain of the unseen observers, or the impact one might have on another's journey. If this narrative resonated with you, consider subscribing for additional content. There's always a new insight to uncover, and another narrative waiting to unfold.